Tonight on Debate Amongst Friends, NFL news, including recent cuts and a quick look at some of the biggest free agents this season, and so much more starting now.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome to another fine edition of Debate Amongst Friends, live on YouTube. Shout outs to those out there on Periscope. I am the Professor John Gotti, your MC, and always by my side, my client, the reigning, defending, undisputed podcast champion that can cut any mountain down with the back of his hand. It is Holly Woo! Doc Lesnar. How you doing today, sir?
Every time I hear it, I guess it just gets better and better. I guess. I don't even really know what to say.
I'm just saying, it's kind of like the data analyzing ninja. It just grew. It's growing on you, sir. We're starting to get these nicknames for you. I love it.
It's kind of like a conversation I had. It just reminds me of the Power Rangers and, that lady that used to say, "Make this monster grow."
It's about Rita Repulsa?
I don't know her name. That's something I guess that
No,
data analyzing ninja might
I
know.
wasn't asking. I was actually stating that her name is Rita Repulsa, but I get what you're saying.
You're one of the most electrifying people to ever do it. I don't know. I've never met anybody else who knew her name. I just know that that's her line. Make this monster grow.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Make this monster grow.
But
But enough about Power Rangers. Power
I
Rangers.
smell something in the air though. It smells. You smell it, sir. It smells like money. It smells like free agency is in the air.
I never realized how big March was for us as a sporting podcast. We got free agency, we got the combine, we got March Madness, and then NBA is shaping way for the playoffs. March is huge for us.
March is the marking month for many sports.
Oh goodness, not marking anything but to be a mark. Call me anything but a mark.
Oh, I'm no
Anything.
mark, sir. I'm always a smark.
Excellent. Well, we got some great free agents. We had some moves already done. We've had some franchise tags. We've had some releases. Um, let's jump right into it. Free agency starts next Wednesday, so what better time to do a preview than tonight? Clearly, there are some people who are off the board already.
Hmm.
Three of the top five people are already off the board. DeMarcus Lawrence, Jadeveon Clowney, and Grady Jarrett all receiving franchise tags.
Yep.
So that's really leaving Le'Veon Bell and Nick Foles out of the top five. Surprising moves out of New England as they basically said, you know what, forget all these guys. Do you know who we are? We're the New England Patriots.
Don't you
And
dare sit there and talk to me about franchise tagging. Kidding
yeah, and
me?
they said we're not going to use anything. So Trey Flowers is on the free agent list, but does it really, really matter when they can easily grab someone with a six-round pick if they really wanted to, and basically make them a superstar.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you knew this about the whole Nick Foles situation, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are looking to sign him and parting ways with their QB.
Which makes sense. Blake Bortles is okay. He's not a great quarterback. He had that one magical run, but ultimately they were predicated on the run game that year, so it made sense.
I think it's time for a change. They need someone that's real Eli-like. Not to, give Eli a compliment, but they need to change there. They have some really good weapons. D.D. Westbrook is someone who we talk really highly of coming out of college.
Hmm.
Like really don't want to see his best years, decay away. I mean, I feel like Nick Foles can do something more than what Blake Bortles is doing. We're not saying that Nick Foles is going to be a MVP caliber quarterback in the upcoming years, but their offense is going to be a lot more balanced compared to what it's been for the last few years, minus that one magical season.
Right. And I mean, the one thing I'm hoping is that, Nick Foles doesn't get this massive contract and then all of a sudden he turns into a dud. I don't believe so,
Are,
especially
are,
if
are, are you trying to say that he has the potential risk of turning into Kirk Cousins?
absolutely. You kidding me? And coming from the same division. I
Exactly.
mean, so absolutely, he does. I mean, look at what happened with what's the quarterback that went to Denver
Chase
from
Keenum.
Minnesota? Yeah, I mean, look what happened to Case Keenum. I mean, he had a great season in Minnesota, change of scenery, and it didn't help him at all. Like,
Nope.
don't get me wrong, Nick Foles, it is time for him to cash in, even though he was scheduled to make $18 million. I mean, he must know that he's going to get more money by
Mm-hmm.
opting out. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. The Jaguars, they've been looking for a good quarterback, since, Leftwich and Brunell. So,
Yeah.
hopefully he can go ahead and go in there and be successful.
I mean, even David Garrard wasn't a terrible QB for them.
That's true. He did have some good years. He did. That's true. That is true.
The problem is no one remembers who he was.
It's tough, It's really tough because he had maybe what 2 or 3 years. It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't too many years. He had a few.
I mean, we could say this thing about someone like Matt Schaub, but people act like he was a great quarterback, but he really wasn't.
He really wasn't though, and it's it's tough.
It
It
is
really
tough.
is tough, because I think Matt Schaub and a lot of those quarterbacks, Matt Castle, like a lot of those quarterbacks that came from New
Well,
England.
here's okay. So Matt Castle might have been an exception. I felt like because he literally came out of New England and nearly got the team into the playoffs. I believe he almost got them to the playoffs, or they was a wild card team. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think he missed it. I think they missed it. I think they went like 10-6, but they missed the
Yeah,
playoffs. It was really almost Brady-esque. That's why.
right, exactly. So like,
Yeah,
it's not like
that's
he was a terrible QB. I think he was just a. It was consequential based off the system that he was playing with after he left, and after that one
mhm.
year, I believe he went to the Chiefs, if I don't
He did go
remember.
to the Chiefs. That's right.
So I mean, it wasn't a bad Chiefs team. It was coaching.
Right. And that's the thing about the Jaguars that I'm hoping that they have the right system in play in order to utilize Nick Foles' strength. I mean, because really the whole idea from the Eagles really playing a RPO style of play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really helped. But I don't know if you can run RPO with the same personnel in Jacksonville. And I guess that's the part that I
I
would be
don't
questioning.
I don't think so because they're a power running team. Like they're you know not to pick on the Giants again, but they're pretty much what the Giants team wants to be. Have a great strong running back to run behind it. They utilize the defense collapsing down with play action.
Right, and I mean, naturally, of course, with Tom Coughlin being there, they would want to be similar to the Giants, and I'm surprised they don't have a Thunder and Lightning option back there, even though they try, I guess, with T.J. Yeldon, I guess as the Lightning, but I don't know if he's as good as like Bradshaw and the guys that the Giants had during that run, you know.
Exactly.
But I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Nick Foles is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see him play.
It'll lead to great conversations. I'll say that.
Absolutely. All right, so let's look at some of these other guys in the top 10 here. I do see D Ford was franchised even after his big mistake in the playoffs that cost the Chiefs the game. But he got franchise tagged, and
Which
that's okay.
which once again, I believe the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs got fired like not too far after that happened, and you called that too.
Yeah, they were pretty. It was pretty an underwhelming performance by
It
the
was very
Chiefs.
pedestrian of that Chiefs
Yeah,
defense. Like they were
it was,
just going through the motions and just hope that Patrick Mahomes would just carry them to another win. Like
which
this is the game to the Super Bowl.
right, which he almost did. I mean, he was so very close. Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think I turned the game off, but Mahomes almost did bring them back. So I mean, much credit to him.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, they bring D Ford back with the franchise tag, which I understand. And rumor has it they're going to re-sign Tyreek Hill to a massive deal, even though he's not a free agent this year. They want to get him locked up for the near future.
Which makes sense for them.
Absolutely. Game changer. Now, one of the biggest names on here, and we last remember he was being carted off the field with a bird on his shoulder, pretty much, or should I say, flipping a bird off of his shoulder. Earl Thomas of the Seattle Seahawks, of course, isn't going to re-sign with the Seahawks, at least what I've been hearing and what I've been reading. He's already stated that he wasn't going to give them a hometown discount, which
Absolutely not.
makes sense,
Yeah.
given the fact that, everything that happened to him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of talk about a place that you're local to, where there's a star on their helmet.
So much so
I,
that
I
you had to break your voice a little bit there.
yeah, like I mean, my voice. I didn't even want to say it. I mean, a star on their helmet was interested, but I mean, all that kind of died away. So I don't even know if that's still up for
here's
discussion.
here's the problem with the Cowboys. They have more issues than just their safety position.
Right. It's true.
Like they need better corners. They need a really good slot receiver, which they're talking about not giving Cole Beasley. Well, they want Cole Beasley to take a hometown discount as well, and Cole Beasley's like, I'm not gonna do that because like I led the team in catches for
Right.
2 years straight. Like, pay me my money. Like those
Absolutely.
are holes that they really need to, you know, sully up because that receiving core still isn't as good as people made it turn out to be. And even after they acquired, name escaped me. I almost
Oh,
said Miles
you're
Austin, but it
talking.
wasn't Miles
No,
Austin.
no, 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 no. That's old school.
Yeah,
They they acquired what's his name from the Raiders.
yes.
Dang,
See, it's
I
so
can't
much
even.
so like that
Yeah,
just proved my point right there.
yeah, because he was okay. Amari Cooper. That's his
Thank
name.
you. It
Amari
was Amari
Cooper.
Cooper,
Yes,
yes. But like that just proved
yes.
my point there, though.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Like, yeah, he came in there and did damage, but the problem was like no one had scouting reports on him with that scheme at all.
Hmm.
So they had the element of surprise. Same thing what we said about rookies who had a crazy season as a rookie. They tend not to have a great sophomore season because now people have tape on them.
Right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it's going to be interesting to see where Earl Thomas winds up. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does wind up, in maybe San Francisco with his old running mate.
That
Um, or-
may end up being an option. I believe they do have enough cap to sign him. I don't know what else
oh,
they're trying to do as well.
right, absolutely. And I mean, there are a lot of teams with big salary cap numbers. I mean, obviously, maybe the Texans want to replace the Honey Badger. I mean, I don't know because the Honey
I
Badger is on
was
this
actually
list.
reading something a few days ago about one great destination for Earl Thomas would be the Houston Texans, out
Yeah,
in the quote unquote
it,
armpit of Texas.
it would be interesting to see. And I mean, there are some really, really good names on this list. Of course, we won't go through all of them, but I mean, I just want to skip around. Those were kind of some of the top 10. I think one interesting player that's number 10 on the list, which the team decided not to franchise him because he already said he wasn't going to play under the franchise, and that was Landon Collins.
Yeah, he's been very vocal all over social media,
Very
which
vocal.
may help him, but it may hurt him at the same time.
Right. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those teams like Seattle. Maybe Dallas says, hey, we played against him. We tried to do everything against him. Now we
Hmm.
want to be with him. I think Landon Collins is a big time playmaker, a big change agent, somebody that can come in and make a big change. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these playoff,
And
potential contenders sign
and
him.
it's possible, but the Giants can, convince him to come back. I mean, I think he's asking for $11.3 million for his new contract, and they already released Vernon from Olivier Vernon.
I did see that. And I was pretty surprised. I would have definitely continued to try to trade him. I don't really like when people release people, but that goes back to the narrative that we talked about before when teams just so happen to not keep things in house. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And that's the part that kind of always gets me. It's like, if you want to trade someone, don't let it be known. Like, shop them quietly. I never hear anything about New England until it happens.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
pretty much.
And I feel like other teams need to practice that the best they can, and I feel like they don't do that.
Well, it becomes hard because like a little whisper turns into a yell. To use a analogy there. Like,
Absolutely.
we could go. New England's looking to trade it. What happened? What's happening? Like, what? What? I heard something. But then you hear something like Dallas is looking to get. Oh, Dallas is looking to get Earl Thomas.
Oh my God! I can't believe you just did that.
But you get what I'm saying though. Like,
I do.
it's now just a whisper turns into a yell. Like,
That's super
people get
funny.
this information from everywhere now. So, and it kind of touched base on a video game leak that happened, which I'll talk about for final thought, and I'm pretty sure you know what I'm
Hmm.
talking about too.
Sure, sure.
But like, it's hard to keep things in house where there's people who are willing, for the money, to speak out on these things, leak these things out, or for players, make their intentions known publicly.
Mhm. Right. You're absolutely right, and it's just interesting to see, you know, everything that kind of happens. But you're right though. Those whispers, man, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. But I mean, we're gonna see what happens. I mean, in this particular situation, there are several people on this list that were key contributors. And
Yes.
just looking through some of the names and just pairing some people together, that Vikings defense here, you're looking at Sheldon Richardson and Anthony Barr on this list,
Mm-hmm.
and those are two guys from the Vikings that if they lose both of them, retooling would be pretty tough after a down year.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see how they do. But I also would be interested in seeing how the NFC champions are going to do with not only them releasing Mark Barron, who is a pretty solid player for
A
them,
very solid player for them.
but also, potentially losing Lamarcus Joyner and
And
Dominican
the Dominican
Sue.
Sue. Yep.
I mean, that would be rough.
I mean, that would be that second, well, for this team at least, that third year, free fall that's happening when
Hmm.
people feel like that, their stock is much higher now, so they're going to try to get paid. I
Right.
mean, the name of the game should be I want to win championships. So when they talk about, the greatest of all times, well, this particular player put in work on this Super Bowl and helped us win the game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to just see how everything gets worked out. And then, we did hear just recently that Eric Weddle from the
Was
Ravens
released.
was
Yeah.
released. So that's going to be interesting. And I think something that kind of fell under the radar that not too many people, I guess, talk about was that the Ravens also released Michael Crabtree.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I mean, we're definitely going to keep a look and
You
keep
gonna put a
looking
star
into.
receiver like Michael Crabtree on me?
Oh my goodness! Imagine the possibilities of where he could go. And I mean, there are some other notable people who aren't on this particular list on NFL.com. You do have the Buccaneers, Quan Alexander. You got Randall Cobb. Jordan Hicks of the Eagles is on there. Mark
Mm-hmm.
Ingram's a free agent this year. Kareem Jackson of the Texans. Terrell Suggs is a potential free agent this year. And Golden Tate of the Eagles. I
Yep.
see here Brandon Graham, I know, did re-sign with the Eagles. So, I mean, there's going to be interesting storylines developing. I'm so curious to see who's the first person that's going to get signed. I know Le'Veon has a few teams that are, looking at him. I wouldn't be surprised if the Indianapolis Colts wind up with Le'Veon Bell.
I wouldn't put it against it. I believe they lost. Well, I believe Hayward Bay is on the free agency market. I believe he played with them last year.
Hmm. And they have the most money. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
They can do it.
they don't need both Le'Veon and Antonio Brown, but
Mm-hmm.
theoretically they could get both of them. But I could see Le'Veon there. I think they have some good quality young backs there, but I think Le'Veon Bell behind that, that offensive line, I think that would be good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even looking at some of the tight ends that's going to be free agents. Tyler Eifert, Luke Wilson, Jared Cook, Richard Rodgers. Antonio Gates will probably re-sign back with the Chargers just to finish up his career. Heading into age 40.
Wow. He had a pretty decent season last year.
He
I
did.
mean, he came in and contributed. He came in and contributed very well. I think tight ends Tyler Eifert is an interesting player, and I hope he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, then I don't know how the Bengals would let him get away.
I feel like the Bengals are trying to make the right moves. Of course, the Bengals being the Bengals are not going to make the right moves, and they may end up. I mean, they already wasted a lot of Tyler Eifert's years. I mean, a lot of players who can be really good in the league who play for the Bengals
Mhm.
lost a lot of their years playing in those terrible systems. Like, I'm just gonna call that right now.
Can we just take a time, like a quick 5 seconds to, celebrate celebrate the end of the Marvin Lewis era?
No, I can't because if they, well, did they end up getting a new coach yet? I don't even
Yeah,
remember.
they hired the quarterback coach from the Rams. I think it's Zach something or another.
Yes, you're right. Okay, because I was thinking for some reason I was like, for some reason they end up getting Hugh Jackson. It's not really an improvement. It's just the same things.
No,
It's just a different person.
they hired Zach Taylor from the Rams.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I remember that now because they announced that I believe the week before
Right.
the week of the NFC title game actually.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly when they did it. So I mean, we're definitely looking forward to seeing, what happens with, you know, free agency. Who else is going to be
Hmm.
signed? Who else is going to be released?
I mean,
Obviously,
someone who you were really high on was Ezekiel Anza.
I
Out there in
like
Detroit.
Ziggy.
Yeah.
And I think the thing with him, speaking of pass rushers, he's the kind of guy that can come in and help a team. I don't see the Lions letting him go. I think a lot of people will um, be after him, but I think the Lions can't let him go.
I know the Lions made boneheaded decision. That's why Megatron ended up retiring.
Yeah, Barry Sanders retired earlier, and
Exactly.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made a complete overhaul. I mean, it might be time to part ways with Matthew Stafford.
I think you might actually be right about that. I kind of don't want to see him leave because I feel like he can definitely lead the team to some greatness. But I feel like that's still more on the system
Right.
than on Stafford because, like, some years, like, Stafford can throw for over 5,000 yards. Like, he could be, up there within the elites. But then the very next year, he's like playing like Eli.
Right, and it just doesn't equate to wins, like playoffs, like Super Bowl hopes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and they had some pretty good coaches, and it's a shame because so many coaches got fired because of this,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have been avoided had they just kind of moved on from him. And don't get me wrong, I like Matthew Stafford a lot. He has a great, great arm. I mean, his first couple years he was injured a little bit, but ultimately they should have probably moved on.
That's fair. That's fair. And you know what? I also found someone else too that's interesting, and I wanted to get your thoughts about Quan Alexander heading into free agency.
So I know the Bucks offered Quan some, some money. It didn't say how much. Honestly, I think a lot of these players want 10 to 15 million dollars, even though they're, and I'm not saying they're worth based on their play, but they're worth based on the market that we know. Somebody like Quan Alexander, he's good, but he's not 12 million, 11 to 13 million dollar good.
I don't
I
know.
would
That
say
still
that
sounds like you're saying that he's not worth what he's
he's
trying
not.
to.
He's not. And you know what the thing is, and I tell this on the Facebook groups, it's like they're gonna go out and they're gonna say, okay, how much am I worth? I mean, maybe their agents telling them, oh, you probably can get 10 to 11 million dollars. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing. That's what the agent's gonna hear. I'm hearing 10 to 11 million. Okay, how much is the Bucks offering? Bucks are going to offer, let's say 8 or 9 million. 7 to 9 million most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll go out, meet with a team. That team will say, "We'll give you 9.25 or 9.5," and he'll be like, "Hmm." He'll probably take it. Or in some cases, what I've seen, especially with the likes of like Mason Foster in the past,
Mm-hmm.
Mason Foster took like a $6 or $8 million deal. And I'm like, why couldn't we sign him for 2 years, $4 or $5 million per season? Why couldn't we sign him for something like that? So then it comes off looking making the Bucks look cheap. But we're gonna lose Quan Alexander and we're gonna lose Adam Humphries. So
Yep.
to me, as a Bucks fan, I don't know what we're gonna do, but I know that you know, um, we just re-signed our left tackle, Donovan Smith. So we're going to see how everything else goes because we don't have no money. Yeah, $0.
Like, like the Bucks open up their wallet, they see a little fly out. Like that's how broke they are, folks.
That fly isn't even flying anymore. It's actually, you just open your wallet, you turn it upside down, and that fly just hits the ground.
Dead.
Dead, dead money, dead cap, dead potential.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't even know what the. I guess I know when I look at it, we've got about 30 something million on the offensive line. Then we have about 30 something million on the defensive line. And then you got Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. That's about 20 million. So I
That's
mean, we
about 20
probably got
million.
a
Yep.
yeah, we probably got about $80 million wrapped up into like seven guys.
Yeah.
When I look at it. But I mean, what can you do? You're trying to keep your core guys, but I don't know. What can you do?
I mean, after a while, you have to start thinking about cost versus production because if you're spending, what you said, about $80 million for these nucleus players, but it's not turning into playoff appearances or a playoff run, like I mean, even though you like them, it's time to let them go. If they ain't
Right.
producing, like
And,
why are we paying you this much money?
and I think a lot of people wanted us to let Gerald McCoy go, and they wanted us to let, you know, um,
Sound
Deshaun
like
Jackson go.
sounds like those Panther fans over there.
No, I mean it was a lot of everything, man. Honestly, it was kind of ridiculous. And I was just like, I wouldn't mind trading Deshaun Jackson. I even said it today. I wouldn't mind if the Bucks drafted DK Metcalf, traded Deshaun Jackson, you know, and then use that money to try and get one of these safeties or one of those corners that we desperately need. Um, you know, it just depends, honestly.
No, I can understand that. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. I think the last thing I really wanted to ask you about this, and we can move on to what else we
Of
need to
course.
do for tonight. The amount of safeties that's hitting free agency,
Well, safety is
or
one of
or
those
or or, or
positions.
hitting the waiver wire.
Well, safeties aren't as big as they used to be because of the rule changes. I mean, the game has changed so much that it's one of those things where safety isn't really that big. I mean, you see, they had to move Mark Barron down to linebacker for him to be more effective. And
Well, I
it's
think they moved him down to linebacker because they had so many injuries that 1 year, and he was just so good at it that he just became a linebacker.
well, he really wasn't that good at safety. I mean, I watched him for a couple years, and I mean, and at Alabama, he was great. I mean, I would have loved for us to have picked him and moved him to linebacker. And we would have actually had an opportunity to you know
See what he got.
be yeah to be good, and it would have been cool. But it's one of those things where a guy leaves the team and he gets good all of a sudden, like Adrian Claiborne. Same
Yeah.
thing. Same thing. Now he has a Super Bowl ring, just like most old Buck players that go to New England and all these other teams.
Got a Super Bowl ring or make it to the Super Bowl themselves. Meanwhile,
Right.
you're just sitting there like, wow, what the heck?
Exactly. Exactly. But other than that, I mean, and, it's a rude awakening, I think, for safeties, and really this particular free agency, it's defense. Period. I feel like
Yeah,
a lot of teams are ultimately looking to, basically change their defenses because there are a lot of things that are changing in the game, and that old approach to doing things is just not working anymore.
well, it's no longer your 90s 2000s NFL anymore. Like just like how we talk about how the NBA is all about fast pacing and putting points on the board. Like that's pretty much the NFL in a nutshell now. Especially given that Rams Saints game this year. Which was the
Right.
highest viewed game um, throughout the whole year, including said Super Bowl. Like it was the most watched game of the year, hands down.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. And as things are coming along, make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll put as many stuff out there as we can as soon as we find out.
Without question. Without question. But I mean, I think free agency is always interesting. I'm just so curious to see, who that first or second, who that first and second person are going to be. Who's going to get the most money, who's going to be aggressive. It's always fun to watch the business side of free agency.
Absolutely, I can't wait to see what's gonna happen. Once we get it, what's the phrase? It's the first shot that begins the fireworks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fire the first shots in this war that's called free agency, ladies and gentlemen.
Hilarious.
But
Hilarious.
I think we're ready at endgame. We're gonna do a really quick show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and the Doc is gonna start off, be our leadoff hitter with our final thoughts. Doc, what you got?
Got a chance to watch Antonio Brown's interview, which he said a whole bunch of nothing. It was interesting to watch him, kind of continuously talk about, where he came from and, how he was okay and, like he loved football, but he didn't have to play football. In his mind, he'll always be great. It was really an experience to watch it. There were a few slips there, in the conversation because, he mentioned a few things that he probably wasn't supposed to mention. about his upbringing and whatnot. But it was
Yeah.
it was very interesting to say the least. And it was funny because he threw people under the bus without throwing them under the bus, but it was almost
No,
like,
no, 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 no. He
you
threw them under the
know,
bus.
but
There's no like.
I don't know. I mean, I felt like he didn't. It wasn't just like, hey, like this person is terrible. It was like, it wasn't like, hey, I told him to throw me the ball here. He threw me the ball here. It was like, no, like he doesn't even know how many kids I have, kind of thing. So it was almost as if it's not about being on a team. Like he wasn't talking about football. He was talking more about family. He wants to be a part of a family as a team. So
Yeah.
he was like, I understood it was a business, and it feels like he was mad more at the Steelers because they're treating everything like a business transaction rather than a family dealing.
Yeah.
And, I can kind of understand. I mean, the one thing that's kind of like, I sit there and I kind of had to continuously chuckle about is that mustache. It's just driving me crazy.
I mean, that was the first thing. I'm just like, why does he have that? Like, who dyes the mustache really?
I don't know. I was like, I mean, it's driving me nuts, man. But I mean, it's his mustache. I guess, he can do that. But it kind of ages him a little bit. That's something I don't like about it. It kind of gives me a Hulk Hogan vibe. It's weird.
I was immediately thinking Hulk Hogan when I saw that. I was like,
Yeah, it's so crazy. But ultimately, the Steelers are trying to trade him soon, especially after this interview. The relationship is not, something that can be, reestablished, or not something that can be potentially, settled. I think at this particular point, they're most likely going to deal him away. Which team, you know, probably going to come out next couple of days. I did hear that the Jets are out, so we're going to see what happens.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in that whole circus.
Yeah, speaking of circus, the media went crazy, and I hope I'm not stealing one of your final thoughts here. But Jason Witten unretires
Yeah, yeah.
and
Uh,
rejoins the
he's stepping
Cowboys.
away from the announcers booth for Monday Night Football and is returning back to the Cowboys. I mean, is it shocking? Honestly, not
No,
really.
oh
Not
yeah,
really.
no, no, I don't think it's too shocking. It's just so many people they're not happy that he rejoined the Cowboys. They're happy because he's no longer going to be an announcer. And that is where I found it to be hilarious. And I didn't know if it was because, I know some of the player. There was a player or two that was catching up with him in some of their receiving yards or catches or
hmm
touchdowns. And I don't know if he was like, I can't go out like this. My Cowboys look terrible. I got to get back out there. Maybe Jerry called him and was like, hey, buddy, I need you to come out for one more year. Mind you, he's about to turn 37 this year.
Yep.
He was already slow, so I
Well,
don't
and
know.
I have another theory about that. What if Jason Garrett gave him a call? He was like, "Jason, I'm about to get fired. I need for you to come out here and save my hide."
I mean, and maybe maybe it's a little bit of both. I mean, maybe they all called. I mean, maybe they planned on calling him for the next 3 years until he turned, 40.
Yeah, but don't they have Rico's Gathers as their tight end? Like, give him a chance?
I mean, that sounds like something
Or
Skip would say.
or is it the old adage that like we like to say the Cowboys just stink?
I mean, there's no question about that. And I mean, the fact that he had to bring Jason Witten out of retirement, and maybe this was the plan all along, and we just didn't know it. Like, hey, I'm gonna take a year off, and then I'm gonna come back. Maybe that was the plan the entire year.
I don't know. I have questions about that. That's a terrible plan.
Yeah, that was the plan. Like, hey, I need to rest my body, and
Like
you know,
like for a team that's quote unquote making the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl.
hmm
Like what if Zeke tore ACL or
right.
Dak had like a Kirk Cousins injury, which we're still hoping that. I mean, I don't know. I got nothing there.
Yeah, I
Well,
got you. I
welcome
got you.
back, Jason Witten. I
Right.
guess.
Welcome back, Jason Witten. And my final thought here is, we had the 2K19 League Draft
For the
um,
NBA
for
sponsored
the NBA
2K, yeah,
2K. That's right.
yeah,
Um,
we have to put that all out there for people to understand that part.
Absolutely. 2019 NBA 2K League Draft, which was held at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. With the first pick, the Jazz gaming team selected Rhea, which, I mean, looking at Ronnie 2K, Ronnie 2K is, I mean, this is what he does. I mean, I, I don't know. Ronnie 2K is the man, but he actually had Gradient as the number one player on his board. But Rhea went number one and Gradient number two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then and then BP, you know, it's interesting because it looks as though based on Ronnie 2K's board, Bear the Beast kind of fell a little bit, and it could just be not so much his actual ability, but it could be his actual position. Because the one thing you notice here, oh well, if people actually looked it up, is that they don't have the positions here. They just have
Just
what these people
names.
play. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can tell you here that Rhea plays center, Gradient plays small forward, BP plays point guard. So I mean, it's interesting to see some of these players that were drafted. I know there was one that you wanted to discuss. Um, which player is that? And I know this person made headlines in sporting news.
Yes, this lady, made headlines as being the first female to be drafted and she got drafted in the fourth round by the Golden State Warriors gaming squad, Chiquita Evans, with the handle name of Chiquide 126. Uh, and she made headlines for both positive reasons and negative reasons. Positive because, of course, as I've aforementioned, she's the first female to be drafted by a 2K league. So, of course, that's going to make a lot of headlines, and people are going to really want to try to, add her to their storyboards for the next coming months. Should be making a salary between 33 to 37,000 per season,
I
of
think
course,
it's
plus the
37.
benefits and plus housing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they made it 37. And I mean, quick fact here. I mean, she made it. I mean, we're talking about a pool of 198 players and two women, her
Mm-hmm.
and another young lady named Brianna Novin,
Yep.
were eligible to be drafted. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't know if the people know how you get into this pool. How do you get into, this particular position? Basically, you have to go through a pretty much a week of basketball. You have to actually win 50 games in a certain period of time
Yep.
during a week. It's like a random week too. It's like, hey, this is the week. You have to win 50 games. All of your other games don't really matter. It's right now, 50 games, and you have to average I believe, an A plus team rating. So that's where it gets to be kind of competitive. So not only do you have to win games, but you have to win games with a high team average. And sometimes that's where it gets to be a little tricky because some people really don't know how to play team basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. We could say that for almost a lot of games that we play actually, how people just can't play
Absolutely.
as a team,
And it's
just
pretty
running
ridiculous.
into things and getting shot.
Well, that's my specialty. But those are the final thoughts that I had. Looking to see how this whole idea of e leagues continues to grow. I'm hoping more teams are created and more opportunities are given.
Oh,
I I
absolutely. Absolutely.
I might
It all depends on exposure and how many more people are trying to get part of this as well too. Because there's a lot of free agents out there for these 2K leagues. And
Hmm.
I don't know how they deal with like cutting people and things like that. Like if it's really like esports logic or is it more basketball logic? So I'll be curious to hear about how that is.
Well, I do
But
remember there was one guy last year who was released.
mm,
It was a lot of speculation as to why he was released, but I don't know if the actual story ever came out. But I know I saw um, a few articles about it. Where the young man was released from the team. And they basically were saying that he did something that you know similar to what you would hear in like a NBA, detrimental to the
to the team.
team.
Yep.
And you'd be sitting there like,
What did
what?
he do?
Yeah. So
Well, and
some
the thing that
people,
people don't understand, and they're like, "Oh, well, he got cut from a video game team. Oh, ha ha ha!" Like it's
right?
serious.
And the player that was released is it shows it's Austin Painter, aka Boo Painter of the Wizards District Gaming, was dismissed and disqualified from the team. And it does here say violating player code of conduct. It doesn't go into any
They usually
additional.
they usually don't unless it's like a TMZ kind of thing. But I don't even think TMZ is really gonna follow that yet.
No, not yet. Not until you get somebody that's really out there, just pretty much making things happen, outside of the team, like somebody that's like just got a really big following. And I'll be honest with you, I did meet a guy who, I feel like he's pretty good. He has a pretty good following. I would be interested to see if, if he's someone that makes it to something like this because he is pretty good. I won't lie. He's a pretty solid player. Um, but honestly, most of the time, I feel like I can compete. I feel like when me and my brother play, we pretty much compete. Um, and really, it's just a matter of finding a team to play with. And I think a lot of these guys found core people to play with. And the last thing I'll say, just to kind of give a little chuckle, there was one kid we were about to play online. We had just got a squad of 5 players about to go in and play, and he was like, I only play with people, who win. And we were sitting there like, I mean, what does that even mean? He was like, I only play with people who have a 70% and up winning percentage. So we were sitting there like, okay, well, I'm out. I could tell you right now, I'm out because I know I have less than 50% at this point because number one, I didn't play a lot. Number two, when I did play, I played with a lot of scrubs. So he said, yeah, I'm gonna join you guys. So then he joined, and then right before we were about to start playing, he left the party.
Wow, that's bush league.
Yes, he left the party after checking our records and what who we were like, and I was just like, wow, he was really serious about that,
Yeah,
So but that's not the kind of stuff that gets you here. You know what I mean? That's not the kind of thing that gets you here. During that week or two when they're doing the combine kind of stuff, sure, but you should want to play with everybody. And that's the thing about the guy that we met. He's like, I want to play with everybody because I want to see, who I might like. So I expect him to be reaching out to me to play because, I didn't grab 16 and 17 rebounds the last 2 times I played with him. So he knows I can rebound my little butt cheeks off. So I'm not trying to hear anything else. Rebounding is what I do. I don't mind saying that.
there's nothing wrong with that.
But I will. Those are my final thoughts, sir.
My final thoughts. I'm gonna keep it in video games. Actually, Devil May Cry 5. For many YouTubers and Twitch streamers, they was able to get early access to the full game. I had a chance to check out some of the cutscenes, but this game is looking incredible. And if you actually decided to buy an upgraded version of the game, actually, there's certain cutscenes in the game where instead of you getting the CGI rendered cutscenes, you'd actually get live action cutscenes with the
Mm-mm.
mocap actors. which is very intriguing, and it's usually something that you would get as like bonus features, after the game is out and like hidden in a disc or they put up on YouTube on a channel or something like that. But they actually integrated something like this into the game, and I found that to be quite innovative. In fact, I don't think I can think of a game where during the game you get the mocap actors slash actresses acting out these cutscenes. So, big
Mm.
kudos to Devil May Cry for that. But the story by itself is really interesting as well too. Not to promote any spoilers, but it tied in every single game. So all four games leading up to here. We're not talking about that DMC reboot one because that's nowhere in there. But there's a lot of enemies from past games that kind of has a twist remix on them. In fact,
Mm.
one of the enemies was actually a gun from Devil May Cry 3 called Artemis. And that was actually quite an intriguing fight to watch. I actually can't wait to get my hands on this game. And who knows, maybe there'll be some gaming amongst friends with this.
Can't wait. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. You know me, I'm always willing to try a game at least once.
I know, and in fact, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but there are certain missions within Devil May Cry 5 where there's a cameo system where you can actually play side by side with someone over the internet, of course, and do certain missions together. So that's also something else that's interesting. With a game just as Devil May Cry, and there's certain games in the past, I believe Devil May Cry 3, where you can have a doppelganger ability, and you can actually have a second controller control that doppelganger. But within this one, you're actually playing as one of the other characters during this particular these particular missions. So that's something
Hmm.
else that's pretty unheard of for a single player game.
Absolutely.
So, if you are interested about Devil May Cry, or if you've been a big fan since the first game, where it definitely had a lot of influences from the Matrix, pick it up or download it on your Xbox, PS4, Steam, PC, whatever system that you have, and enjoy the show. The ending was quite intriguing, and I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with their first DLC because now this game will have a DLC.
Boom.
And my last final thought for those that are not initiated and for those that don't see that orange circle on your watch, The Division
Hmm.
2 is coming out next week. In fact, it's coming out next Thursday for the public, but for those who pre ordered, um, they're actually going to get it next Tuesday, and that's why I decided to talk about it today instead of next Wednesday because the Doc and I and the rest of the neutralizers within Team Neutralized will
Hmm.
be out there in the DC area just saving everyone and taking down these shrew suns and hyenas.
That's right. We're gonna get into that dark zone too this year.
Well, and we got the Dark Zone, which is great too, but they also have more in-game contests with the Black Tusk, which is another militia group who have way more advanced tech that we could ever imagine or even fathom. So it's going to be interesting to see how everything all plays out. And I had a chance to play the game on its last day on the open beta, and had a chance to shoot around. I ended up dying like twice, but it was also like
Mm.
midnight too, so I was starting to get tired. But um, the great spike in difficulty, I was excited for. I wasn't like upset about it. Like it just made me want to play
Hmm.
more. But unfortunately, I had to go to bed because I had to go to work in the morning. But also, the beta was going to end too within an hour as well too. So it really just didn't make sense for me to really put in more hours doing this, but I'm looking forward to playing this game.
Honestly, I thought the gameplay was so much better this time around because they made the AI smarter. Like last
Yes.
year, they, for the Division 1, they would just continue to shoot from a distance. You know, the sniper would stay back. Everybody would shoot from a distance. Every once in a while, you might have had a guy with a shotgun or a runner, coming up to kill you or whatever. But everybody else kind of stayed back. This year, I feel like they're flanking, they're moving. They're not staying stationary. And even that end game from the beta was really like intense,
Yes.
like really, really intense. So yeah, it's definitely going to be much better, and I'm looking forward to it.
I can't wait either. And actually, I did have another final thought, and this was talking about the Mortal Kombat 11 game. There was a huge leak that came out where someone who was close to Death Web Studios actually posted screenshots of the entire roster, at least the season one roster, which caused a huge controversy throughout the internet. And talk about, I believe one person, in fact, Maximilian, dude, who I follow on YouTube, which, of course, if you want to see some awesome video game content that's beyond Gaming Amongst Friends, definitely check him out. But he was talking about how, leaks like those are actually more harmful than helpful in the gaming community because, I mean, now we're just becoming spoiled and we just want everything, right away. Like, these games are trying to make people want more, and I'm not going to get into my whole, a lot of these video games just come out with incomplete games and, come up with super versions and beta versions of Street Fighter. Um,
Hmm.
but they actually dropped a few more, actually a lot more content today. They actually dropped their story trailer, just hinting some of the things that's going to happen during the main story of the game. And they also showed a few more characters making a return back from Mortal Kombat X is Aaron Black, who is the gunslinger from the Old West. He actually has a costume where you can actually see his face, so that's actually really intriguing.
Hmm.
Returning also from Mortal Kombat X is Jackie Briggs, who is the daughter of Jax Briggs,
Hmm.
who actually is sporting a brand new hairstyle. She's actually rocking some dreads and is adopting more of a kickboxing fighting style versus the way that she was fighting in the first game, which it wasn't really that good. Kodo Khan is making a return back, along with Shao Kahn as well. In fact,
Hmm.
during the story mode trailer, they actually showed both Khans talking with each other, so it's going to be intriguing to see what's going to happen. A fan favorite, Johnny Cage, he
Hmm.
had a reveal trailer happened, I believe, this past weekend. Which, if
Hmm.
you and I believe I showed this one to you. I don't know if I had a chance to show that one to you or not, but it's quite awesome. Like he might be, you know, best character when it comes to personality, as well as just his fatality as well too. If you want to find out what the fatality is, just search up Johnny Cage Mortal Kombat X fatality. It's too good. You're gonna be laughing your head off, just like he knocks people's heads off. Also
Hmm.
returning is his daughter Cassandra Cage, or Cassie Cage for short, who has a brand new voice actress and pretty much a brand new look, which I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is what it is. I mean, we'll see what happens. Of course, we got Baraka returning is Devora from Mortal Kombat X as well too. Definitely gonna have some kind of role in the story, especially since in Mortal Kombat X. Spoiler for those that don't know, she actually killed off Melina
Hmm.
during the story mode in that game. So Melina was actually officially dead during canon. We also had Jade, who came out a few weeks ago. Of course, Cabal was part of the first group. Kano is back as well too, sporting a brand new hairstyle, and also has a entirely different actor as well too. So that's going to be interesting. Kun Lao, Liu Kang, both the Shaolin monks are coming back. Of course, Scorpion Raiden as well too. And then also, everyone knows how I feel about Sonya Blade and her voice actress. I am very vocal about that, so I have nothing else to say about that because I don't think it matches whatsoever. But this person's costume that she wore for the past wrestling pay per view was good, and I kind of wish she just used that for now on.
Hmm.
And those are my final thoughts.
It's fantastic.
But, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, we are that is the end of our show. Like I said, we're just gonna do it mightily quick, even though we actually went into an hour. So sorry, not sorry. But you can catch
Right.
us on YouTube. Catch a lot of our previous episodes right here on YouTube. You can also check us out on iTunes, on Google Play Music or Google Podcast. Uh, Player FM, Stitcher, and any and all podcast application or your Androids and iOS devices. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, as well as our Pinterest as well too. We don't really talk about it that much, but we probably need to do more into it. Just search for Debate Amongst Friends or at Debate Amongst Friends. You can follow our Twitter account at Debate Amongst Fra, and you can follow myself at Ken86 on Twitter and Professor John Gotti on Instagram. You can follow at Podcasting East Holly Woo on Instagram and on Twitter at TL Double. And
That's right.
that's all I gotta say about that, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much for tuning in tonight, and we'll catch you next week as we talk more about sports, all for our reads, give you our takes, and educate the masses. I am the Professor John Gotti.
And this is Dr. Wednesday Night, the podcast beast.
And like we always say, goodbye, mwah, and to all, a good night.